Maryland football must start 4-0.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Maryland football must start the year 4-0 if we want the year to be successful. If we don't start this year well for Maryland football, it could go down fast. And this year could quickly crumble because the back end of the schedule, which I'll get into, is a gauntlet, to be honest. It's a gauntlet in the back end of the schedule, and there's a ton of good teams in the back half. That doesn't mean there's not good teams in the first half. It doesn't mean there's not good teams in the first 4 games. But I think that if we want to start the year right and to get to our goal, as I think, to me, the goal for Maryland should be this year with a transitioning year, where we lose our starting quarterback, who's been our quarterback for a while now. When we lose Talia Tungvile, the all-time Big Ten passing leader, we lose some other key players, but you lose players every year. But specifically when you lose a guy like Talia, and we've had some roster turnover, you look at it, and I say the goal this year's got to be 7-8 wins. That's about what Vegas has us at, as well as they have us. A lot of people are having our under at win total, but our win total is about 7 wins. So you want to be somewhere around there, I would say. I think that's our goal. And for us to have a good shot at doing that, I think the Terps have to start 4-0 because there is some games later on the schedule, and we've kind of been used to this. This is what it was like last year, where our 3 hardest games were, a lot of it was in the back half of the year, and our 3 hardest games last year. And so it's a similar thing to last year. And last year we were able to do what? We were able to start the year really successfully. We were able to start the year 4-0. We played Towson, we played Charlotte, and then we had 2 good opponents with Virginia and Michigan State. I mean, maybe those 2 schools had down years last year, but still 2 formidable opponents, 2 opponents that you can easily, if you play bad as a Maryland program, you can easily lose to. And that's what allowed us to have a successful year, and I think hit a bowl game that we wanted to hit, to be able to have a winning record that we wanted to have. Because I'm telling you, if we started last year, 3-1, even though that doesn't sound bad at all, with, let's say we lose one to Michigan State, it's a lot harder to climb yourself out of that loss and climb yourself out of that hole. And I know 3-1 doesn't sound like a hole, but when you look at the back half of our schedule last year, we had Penn State, we had Michigan, we lost to Northwestern in the back end, we lost to Illinois, we played Ohio State right in the middle of our season. But I'm telling you, if you don't start the season right, then it can quickly unravel. And when I think of the Maryland team and when I look at the schedule this year, it's a really similar thing as last year. The way we started is like a really similar type of thing. We play UConn the first week, which should be a win, should easily be a win. And then we play a big game. Michigan State comes to Maryland, where I think that if we want to have a successful year, if we want to start the year on the right note, and we don't want things to unravel, and you know what can happen when things unravel, we need to beat Michigan State. And Michigan State's had a lot of changing, coaching change, quarterback change, a lot of changing in the portal. But I still think it's a very winnable game. And then we play Virginia on the road this time, and Virginia should be better this year. They picked it up later on the season. I know they started off pretty bad, especially when they played us, but they were a different team later on the season, and it's a different Virginia team. They're probably going to be better. They look better as a roster, and I say That's a game that we need to win, though, still. That's a team I think we're better than. In Virginia and Michigan State, you could probably go either way. So that's the first 3 games, and then you play Villanova. And Villanova, yeah, they're probably an easy win, to be honest. It should be a completely easy win. Villanova comes to us. It's really the same. It's a pretty similar thing to last year. 2 teams that we had no business losing to in Towson and Charlotte, and then you had Virginia and Michigan State to start the season. It's literally like basically the same thing. You just sub out Towson for UConn, and you sub out Villanova for Charlotte. So I think if we want to start the year right, and I'm not saying this is going to allow us to like be a 10-win season or anything like this. I'm just saying for us to have a successful season where we win 7, 8 games, you have to start the season 4-0. I think it's really identical as last year's start. And I thought that last year our schedule is honestly harder than this year. So if we don't start the year right this year, we could quickly end up getting in trouble, and we could quickly end up blowing off steam. And when I look at it and I say, when I also think about our roster, I say, think about it in the quarterback view. We have some good players in that quarterback room, and I've talked about the quarterback battle, I feel like almost every day on here between MJ Morris and I said it yesterday, Cameron Edge has a chance to win that battle, and I do believe that. But between MJ Morris, Cameron Edge, and Billy Edwards, I look at it and I say, if we don't start the year 4-0, or if we drop one, I mean, a lot of different things can happen. Or if our offense doesn't look right when we play Michigan State or when we play Virginia, and that makes us drop a game and the quarterback play doesn't look good, that's when things can quickly start to unravel if we don't win games early. Because think about it. If we don't win games, quarterback play doesn't look good, the offense doesn't look good, people can be really quick to hit the panic button in that situation and say, oh no, maybe this isn't the right guy. Maybe if, let's say, MJ Morse is starting, it's like, oh no, maybe MJ Morse isn't the guy. Maybe we should try Billy Edwards, or maybe we should try Cameron Edge, or whatever the case may be. And that's when you could see things start to unravel early on if you don't win early, especially with the quarterback battle. You could say, we don't have Talia, things don't look right, things aren't going well, and you could really start to see a lot of concern from Maryland fans. You could see some concern from Coach Loxley, and he could be forced to play his hand and maybe make a change where you look at it and you say, yeah, maybe that could be a good thing in that case. But usually when you have a starter and then you go to the backup, and there's some cases where, yeah, it helps, but a lot of times it can make your team even worse. It can hurt your team even more. And then if the backup doesn't play well, then it's a whole thing to go back to the starter. Does he have the confidence? But if we start the year 4-0, even if the offense is a little bit shaky, which I'm predicting that there's a pretty strong case with the new quarterback that the offense has a decent shot at being a little bit shaky. But even if you start 4-0, even if the offense looks a little bit shaky, then your quarterback, it will still probably be the starter. Everything will probably be okay. And yeah, you might hear some outside rustlings about this guy hasn't played particularly well, or this guy's just been okay so far. But it's going to be different. People are going to make the excuse and be like, well, he just started the season. Well, he's new to the Maryland offense. Or if it's the case of Edge or Billy Edwards, they're going to be like, well, it's their first real start in a while. In terms of Billy Edwards, he hasn't made a real start in a while. I guess you would say the Music City Bowl game, but he hasn't made very many starts. Maybe that's the better way to put it. And then they'll say Cameron Edge, oh, well, if he's a starter, which I don't think he'll be, but they'll say, oh, we started 4-0. Oh, Cameron Edge is just young. He'll get it figured out. We've still seen good flashes. People will focus on the positives, and Coach Loxley will focus on the positives if we start 4-0. People will still be happy. People will not complain too much about the quarterback play, even if it's not the best. But if we start 3-1 or 2-2, which could actually be tragic, then people could start looking at it and saying, we need to change. And when people start making changes and when stuff starts changing around, that can hurt. That's not always an awesome situation. And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying there's a couple reasons why we need to start 4-0. I think one reason is we need to establish quarterback confidence for whoever that guy is. That's for Coach Loxley to decide and to figure out. But if he's not confident after those first 4 games, either that could lead to some unraveling in the quarterback battle or playing somebody else, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, but a lot of unknown. But I also think that if we want to reach our goal as a team, look at the back end of the schedule. The first 4 games, 2 of them are going to be the easiest games all year. The back half of our schedule, I don't see a ton of likable or wins that are probably going to come. Probable wins, I'll say. If you look at it, we play Penn State as our last game of the year. We play Oregon. Oregon could be as high as number 3 team in the country. Some people think they're the best in the Big Ten and think that they could be better than Ohio State this year. I'm not saying that's true, but Oregon's really good. USC could be a top 25 team. Rutgers is interesting. There's some hard battles, specifically Oregon, USC, and Penn State, where a lot of people are going to pencil in 3 losses there. And I'm not saying that's the case, but I am saying those are 3 hard games. So if you don't win early, then it's going to be increasingly hard to have another winning season, have another bowl season, because those games are going to be really hard. And Maryland's a team where I'm looking at it, I'm saying we could easily drop another game to Minnesota, to Iowa as well in the back half. That's another tough team. Indiana, another Big Ten opponent. So if you don't start the year 4-0, it could go downhill fast. Things could start to unravel, and you don't want things to unravel. And I think one quarterback, but also just to have another winning season. You don't start the year 4-0. It's not like we start the year with Oregon and we start the year with USC, and it's like just try and get one win. It's like these are the wins. We need to win these games early because later on the wins are going to be harder to be found, are going to be harder to have. So I think Maryland must start the year 4-0 to allow us to have in a successful year going into the 2024 season. So first 4 games, extremely important. Jon Rothstein made a ton of comments about Maryland basketball, and there's some really interesting things. I will address all the comments that he made. He actually visited practice, and I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. All this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. There's plenty of stuff you guys can bet on. Tomorrow, MLB is back, so make sure you guys go check that out on FanDuel. FanDuel does an awesome job. Or if you want early lines on the NFL season, you can do that as well at FanDuel. So make sure you check out FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So Jon Rothstein, he's a college basketball analyst. He does a bunch of college basketball stuff, and he had a lot of interesting stuff to say about Maryland basketball that I want to address all of them, say if I agree, disagree. But he visited practice yesterday. He did this last year too, and had a lot of interesting things to say. They're kind of things that some of them are kind of his opinion. Some of them are like kind of just what the reality of the situation is. But the first thing he tweeted about was Derek Queen. He said Derek Queen's skill level for his size is ridiculous. Taking and making threes, an effortless offensive player. So this is interesting because we've seen Derek Queen shoot some in his high school career, in his AAU career. We've seen it a little bit, but it's not like we've seen it a ton. And so the fact that John is saying that Derek Queen was shooting threes at Maryland practice is an interesting thing. So I would think that Kevin Willard has been like, we want you to shoot the ball. We want you to put up some shots. We want you to shoot the 3 ball, which makes sense because think about our lineup. And he talks about something else. He talks about a couple other things when it comes to the lineup, but think about our lineup. Julian Reese at the 5, Derek Queen at the 4. A lot of people have been saying, can they play together? And I say, yeah, totally they can play together. But the fact that Derek Queen can space the floor, and if he's shooting the three ball at efficient level, like I'm talking about in the 30%, in the low mid 30s, which I'm not saying he's going to do that, but I'm really unsure of how good of a shooter Derek Queen is from the 3-point arc, but we'll see. But if he is able to do that, like Jon is saying, then that's a pretty special thing. The fact that he can space the floor. And yeah, he'll be able to play some inside, be able to play some outside the arc, and that can really help when we want to create some one-on-ones for Julian Reese, because you have to respect Derek Queen to play some high-low there. And so I think that's a really big point, that if he can space and make threes, and just the fact that he can do that at all is a big deal. But I think with him playing with Julian Reese could make that a really big deal. He says Derek Queen is also an effortless offensive player, which is kind of the wording I've been wanting to use for Derek Queen, because when you watch him, people are like, he's one of those guys that's like nonchalant. It looks like he's not trying, because he just does everything so effortlessly. It's not that it's easy for him, but he's one of those guys that makes everything just look so much easier than it is, because he's not some guy that's just like running by guys, the most explosive type of athlete, jumping out the gym. He's not that type of guy. He's the guy that's like slow, gets to the spot, and that's why some people call him Baby Jokic. So I think Jon hit the nail in the coffin in that kind of the way he put that, and I think that's a really smart way of putting it. Just a simple word to use for Derek Queen, effortless offensive player. So clearly Derek Queen was bowling at Maryland practice, which is perfect. I think he's going to be a really good college player. I don't know how he projects to the pros, but that could be good for Maryland if you want him to stay a while. I don't know exactly. That's not what we're here to talk about, but I think Derek Queen's going to be a really good player for Maryland basketball. He said one interesting thing to monitor is how many minutes each game will Kevin Willard have Julian Reese and Derek Queen on the floor at the same time. And I've been saying that's what I kind of just talked about. If he can shoot the three, that can help a lot. I like them on the floor together. I think you could play some more throwback basketball, post-up basketball, and you could do some really good things. And defensively, I like it as well. I think Derek Queen works as a 4. He can dribble up the court. He can pass the ball. He plays with such high IQ. And so I think he works as a 4. He can shoot the mid-range. Apparently, he can shoot the 3 too. So I think it works. And how much they're on the floor together, I think it's going to be a rotation between those two and Jordan Geronimo, and maybe Pierce, who was a redshirt freshman, maybe can get into the rotation. But I kind of expect those two to play a lot together. You're going to rotate Jordan Geronimo in there, and he's going to get time off the bench. But I see them playing a lot together, to be honest. I don't see why not. And yeah, he's going to go to his bench sometimes, but I think they're going to play a lot. He says there's buzz in College Park regarding Maryland freshman Malachi Palmer, 6'6" and wiry, will be in the Terps rotation. Okay, so this is interesting because I feel like we have a lot of those types of body types, the 6'5", 6'6" guys that can play like the 2-3. We have a lot of those types of guys on the Maryland roster. And so I've been wondering, is Malachi Palmer, is he good enough to be in the rotation? How good really is he? I'm watching his highlights and I'm like, this guy's a good player for sure. He's versatile. He can do everything on the court. And apparently Jon thinks that Malachi will definitely be in the rotation, which is something to watch, something that's important because we want to start building towards the future always. You'll always see that with coaches. And the fact that Malachi would be in the starting lineup, I think, or not in the starting lineup, but in the rotation, have him in the rotation could really help us, and that could look good for the future. And then that also means we got another player next to Derek Queen in that 2024 class. That's a really good player. So having him in the rotation could be really cool to see and a really nice spot for Maryland basketball. He says the biggest thing that stands out at Maryland practice is the size and strength of the Terps guard. Selton Miguel, Rodney Rice, and Deshaun Harris-Smith are all built like fullbacks. Could be tough defensively on wings. And I like that a lot because last year our defense was really good. Look at the KenPom stuff, which I felt like I was looking at a ton. And we were good defensively, and that's the thing that we want to pick up. But I also think that they're all pretty good offensively too, which I'm less actually concerned about. Oh, those guys are good defensively, yeah, that's going to be really important. But we had that last year. I think they're going to be even better defensively. So I think we have a good little core right there of guards and guys that can play defense, and I'm excited to see what they could do. And I'm glad that Jon goes over to Maryland practice. He brings out a lot of interesting types of points. Jordan Phillips is going to be a stud this year and has the potential to be one of the best defensive tackles in the Big Ten. I will talk about that after this. So Jordan Phillips is going to be a problem this year in the Big Ten. He was really good last year. People don't realize how good Jordan Phillips was for us last year. He was a really good player, and he did some really good things for us. He appeared in almost every game. He was healthy. He was a transfer from Tennessee, so there were some question marks. But now I'm looking at him, and a lot of people have him in their preseason All Big Ten. One thing has him 14 preseason All Big Ten. He appeared in all 13 games, 10 starts. He had 1.5 tackles for loss, 28 tackles. And a lot of people are looking at Jordan Phillips as a guy up the middle that not only could be Maryland's best guy on the defensive line, but could be Maryland's best player, period. And there was this funny video of Jordan Phillips going around about how they posted a lifting video of him for the EA college football game and saying, like, why is his strength only a 91? Because he's doing some crazy lift. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was doing some crazy type of lift, and it was like, how's his strength rating only 91 EA, basically. And so, yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with that because his strength up in the middle and his power is very tangible and visible on film. The way that he moves guys back, and specifically in the spring game, go watch the Maryland spring game. He was absolutely dominating, pushing guys back, pushing guys in the quarterback, doing some really special things in the Maryland spring game. And I think you look at it and you say, Jordan Phillips has a chance to be special. And it is so important to have a guy like that in the middle of your defense. I don't know how Tennessee let this guy get away, because finding guys like this along the defensive line that can absolutely create problems is really hard to do. And I think this year he has a chance to do something special in terms of Big Ten honors. He has a chance to be at least a third team All Big Ten. Since there's like a million teams in the conference, I wonder how many All Big Ten selections are going to be, because I guess it'll be harder because of the more teams. But he has a chance to be an All Big Ten no matter how many teams are in the conference. He's that good, and I think he's the most underrated guy in that room. And having Tommy Akingbissote now going into his last year is also a chance to be a good player next to Jordan Phillips, two guys that are experienced up there, and I'm expecting big things from those two. I expect them to be able to stop the run. I expect them to be able to control the line of scrimmage. I think Maryland up front, that has to be our strength, because you look at our team overall, the secondary, a lot of new starters in there. Linebacker room, not as deep. On offense, new quarterback, almost entirely new offensive line. So when you look at the strength of our team, it's Jordan Phillips, Tommy Akingbissote up front, along with the edge group, and it's the receiver group for Maryland football and Roman Hemby. So I think that if your strength becomes just mediocre, you have a problem. So in these games, early on the season, I said it, we must start 4-0. A lot of it's going to be how they control the line of scrimmage. And I think Jordan Phillips, his strength, his legs are absolutely huge. Just himself as a player, it's going to be humongous for him to be able to control the line of scrimmage, to be able to stop the run because of how big, how strong, how good he is, how athletic he is. He's a chance to be an NFL type of guy. He's a chance to be one of the better guys in the Big Ten. And I want to see Jordan Phillips succeed at that. I want to see him be one of the better guys in the Big 10, and I think he has a chance to do that. And Tommy Akingbissote is going to make it easier on him, but he's a guy that has to play at a high level for us to be a good team this coming year. And I think he will. I think he will play at a really good level. He showed it last year, and he didn't just show flashes. He showed it pretty consistently. But You just wanted him to have put a full year together now of being one of the best in the Big Ten. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.